Health and Wellness Center, and you are listening to Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. I know I have to say that a bunch, that DC part of it. I can't just say Dr. Jason Clemmons because the Texas Medical Association in the state of Texas has a great lobby and they create those laws and things like that. So they want you to make sure that you understand that I'm a doctor of chiropractic. So that's why we say it like that. And we'll just let them have their little ways and we'll just keep on trucking down the road. So I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. Hope you had a good time with your family. I hope you had some time off. For all you that didn't have any time off, I appreciate you. Appreciate you being out there working and keeping the world moving while the rest of us had some time off. So thanks for that. And this is a great time. We've been working. We've been working on temptation now for 4 weeks. We're going to wrap up the temptation segment tonight, and we're going to get into the last part of it, and then we're going to talk about some of the things that we actually had to deal with. And it's a great day. It's a great day to talk about health. This first Monday after a holiday, when we've been sitting around, when we've been eating way too much. One of my patients said today, I ate way too much like I was supposed to. And I just kind of laughed. I thought, well, okay. That is the culture that we live in the United States. We're just going to eat way too much, more than we're supposed to. And so, but it's a great day because there's a lot of joint pain today. There's a lot of stiffness. There's a lot of cricks in the neck. There's a lot of low backs that are hot. There's a lot of ill health that's going on today because of some of the things that we put ourselves through. High blood pressure, that was one of them that was jumping out this morning. We have a lot of things going on out there, and so it's a good thing to talk about. So we're going to talk about both those things. We're going to talk about temptation in the last part of it, and then we're going to talk about some of the ideas that we all have been going through. So I think it's going to be a good show, and I appreciate you guys and your patience last week. We took a couple days off at the end of the week to spend some time with our family, and it was good. It was some good time. The cool thing about this format is we can do it any way we want to. So the Facebook group, the YouTube, and the X group, you guys missed us for these last 2 days, Thursday and Friday last week, and for the radio show, we just kind of we played some music, and you probably enjoyed having a break from me for a couple of days. But we're back. It's Monday. It's November 27th. We're working on the last week of November here, and hopefully we can finish this week out strong. That'd be the end. That'd be the end of our. I guess Friday is the beginning of our 4th month that we've been doing this show, and I'm still at it. I'm hoping that hopefully we get better at it, and we're going to keep working at it, and we're going to try to make it good. The thing that's different about this show is that one of my listeners told me that, well, the one thing's for sure is that you're unique, and I just kind of laughed. I thought that was awesome. And there's a lot of stuff, there's all kinds of shows out there, and there's a lot of professionals out there that are doing shows, and there's a lot of professionals out there who are spending a lot of time and energy. And I get it. I get what the competition is out there in the world, and especially in podcasting world and YouTube videos and all that sort of thing that's going on out there. There's a lot of stuff out there that you could listen to. And we're trying to get better at this show. But the one thing that is that might be a little bit unique about this show is that this is not my primary job. My primary job is to take care of patients all day long. And that's what I've been doing since 6 o'clock this morning. We started our fitness classes this morning at 6, and we did 3 fitness classes, and then we saw patients all day long, and I finished about 15 minutes ago, and now we're on here. And the reason I come to this show, and the reason I do this, is I'm hoping to create a connection with each one of you individually. That's what we're trying to do. It's like I'm talking to you, and you're sitting there listening. If you have something that you would like to talk to me about or say something back, you can send us a text at 806-794-0400. That's our text line here in the office. Or you can send us a message on Facebook or YouTube or our Twitter, and we've had some of those that we've been going back and forth on. And so this is really me sharing my life with you. That's why we called it Life, right? Where I'm trying to make a connection with each one of you individually. So if you're listening to me, it's almost like it's just the two of us talking to each other. It's like, how can I help you live a healthier life? And I tell you, when you lose your health, nothing else matters. I've got a family member going through some issues right now, and I'm not going to really get deep into that tonight. But because I want to kind of make sure that things progress along a little bit more before we talk about that situation, and make sure it's okay with that family member. But um, you're just cruising along and everything's fine, and then all of a sudden it's not. And you might be in your 50s, and all of a sudden it's not. And it's like you got a business, you got a wife, you got kids, you got grandkids, and then all of a sudden they're not fine, and you lose your health. And you know what? All of a sudden, everything else becomes secondary. It doesn't make any difference what you had on your agenda. It doesn't make any difference what plans that you had for you and your family and your business and all of those things. As soon as you lose your health, you'll give every single penny you got left to get your health back. You'll give every single moment of energy you got left to get your health back. And so, what we're trying to do on this show is try to just have a conversation with you, and hopefully, some of the things that we're talking about helps you live a better life. And so, I hope you're enjoying it. We're going to keep at it. We're going to keep getting better at it. One of the things that was said to me today that I wanted to touch on right before we get into this part 5 with is where's the hope in this whole temptation thing, is one of my patients said to me today. They said, well, we put up all of our Christmas stuff around the office, our Christmas trees, and played Christmas music, did all that, got our scene changed, got our scenery changed in our office, and our scene changed in our office. And one of my ladies said to me, she's like, she's 77 years old, her husband has passed away, and no one comes to her house. And so she said, it doesn't really matter. I usually don't put my Christmas stuff up anymore because no one comes to see me, and it's just me, and there's a guy renting a room from her. And it's like, what difference does it make? Right. Plus all the stuff's up in the attic and I can't get it down anyway. And I just don't do that anymore. And, it got me thinking there for a second, because I really have learned as I've gotten older how your change of scenery helps your brain. Just being able to see things differently, just, as simple as driving to work a different path than you usually drive, just doing something outside your norm, just changing up your environment just a little bit. Like, getting a new comforter on your bed, or getting some new throw pillows on your couch, or whatever might be your thing in your office, changing it up a little, making something a little bit different in your environment really does a lot. It adds to the richness of life, but it also adds to your brain. It gives you a better outlook on things, I think. I've done it several times in my life where I've been really hesitant to make the change, and then when I made the change, I was like, I can't believe that. Like, that's been amazing. Like that whole change right there is been super. And so I'm going to encourage you, like, even if it's something little, if you're a Christmas tree person and that's your thing, like to decorate for Christmas, even a little bitty Christmas tree with some ornaments just somewhere in the corner might just cheer you up just a little bit, might just change the way you look at things just a little bit, might just give your brain a new experience and something new to look at. And don't be afraid to do that. And it doesn't have to be worshiping. It's not about worshiping the tree, or for the wrong reasons or whatever, or even an upgrade to your life is not a bad idea every once in a while. So sometimes, one of the biggest things is, for years and years, we lived in a house, the kids were raised in this house, and we bought it right when I got out of chiropractic school, and we kept it for 15 years, I think, something like that. And I said, I don't understand why we need a new house. It didn't even make any sense. Like, what do we need a new house for? Like our house is fine, and plus the kids are going to be gone, and that's all. It'll be just me and Leslie. What do we need a big house for? And but we made the commitment, we made the change, and we built a home. Dan Wilson right here in Lubbock built a home for us, um, and I can honestly tell you, I don't worship the home. It's not my God. It's just rocks and stones and two by fours, right? Two by fours is sheetrock. It's not anything to worship. But every time I go home, it's just so happy to be home. It's just it's just so it's just such a blessing. I love my house. It's not fancy. There's nothing fancy about it, but it's something that is just like wow. Like it changed the dynamics. The same thing happened when we moved into our new building in 2021. It was like I loved the place I was at. It was a nice little place. Didn't need anything else, and then moved into the new building, and it's like now every day when I come to work, it changes the way I look at things. Now, it changes the responsibilities too. There's a lot of things, and if you're really smart, you handle it properly, and it's not about spending money. It's not about gluttony or any of that sort of thing. Which the pastor at church yesterday, he kind of laughed because he said that's what we're going to have. The sermon today is going to be on gluttony, and since it was the Sunday after Thanksgiving, everybody kind of thought that was funny. But just a little bit of something, to change the norm does wonders for your brain. I'll just say that like that, and we'll just leave that there. So let's get into the show. Let's get into part 5 at the end. So we've been talking about temptation for 4 weeks, and what we're doing on Mondays is we're taking the lesson that we learned on Sunday at church, and we're taking their format, and I'm bringing it onto the show on Mondays and talking about the same thing from a wellness standpoint and from a brain standpoint and from a health standpoint. And it's been pretty fun to actually do. And I want to make sure tonight, and I want to preface the show by saying that there's going to be a passage in here in Hebrews where it was talking about Jesus and him coming back as a person and the reason for that. And I want to make sure that I'm gonna make some analogies or some references to that passage, not in the idea that I'm Jesus coming back or I'm made this way or any other person in healthcare is made this way or your doctor's made that way. Not in that form. So be careful. Just make sure you understand what we're doing with the show. We're taking the lesson and taking the lesson plan and then using the lesson plan to talk about health, not talk about spirituality. Now, that's a totally different conversation that we could have. And honestly, I'm not exactly sure how you separate those things because it all comes back to the same source. But that's not what we're trying to do. So when we get into it here, let's just make sure that we're clear about exactly how we're trying to do this. So part 5, this is the 5th week, and it's titled "Where is the Hope?" After we've gone through all of the teachings that we've gone through so far, and after we've gone through all of the different ideas about temptation and how let's refresh ourselves a little bit about that temptation, because the 3 types of temptation comes from our eyes, our flesh, and from our pride. Right? It's what we see, and then what we feel on the inside, and then that justification that we're going to have of being right, or don't convince me of that, or I'm not giving that up, or whatever that thing is, right? And so that those ways that we get tempted from our eyes, through our flesh, and with our pride. And we get into the pressure, and the pressure to give into desire and influences that lead us away from health and into sickness. So stealing some of that thought right there, it's that pressure that comes upon us that wants us to move away from our health and wellness, and it's not a neutral. There's not really a neutral when it comes to health and wellness. You're either moving towards health and wellness or you're moving away from it. And so that pressure is what kind of gets to us if we're not lined up like we're supposed to. And so we either overcome it or we be, or either we get overcome by it, right? We either overcome it or we get over. We either I don't know how to say that. We become overcome. We get overcome by it. Yeah, maybe whatever. It gets us or we get it. It's one or the other, right? We're either going to move ourselves towards health today, or we're not, and we're going to move ourselves towards sickness today. And it's about today. It's about our choices today. And look, we've talked on the show in the past, and maybe it was when I was on Ken's show, the Thin Line on Wednesdays, when we were doing Wellness Wednesdays. We talked about this, about the seasons, right? And this is not the greatest season to necessarily jump right into a full blown fitness program, in my opinion. It's not the greatest season to do that because we're in the middle of winter. And when they're in the middle of winter, the trees are losing their leaves, or we're headed into winter really. The trees are losing their leaves, the grass is turning brown, the days are getting cold. It's dark early because we mess with the clocks and the sun changes, or the earth changes where it is around the sun. Those type of things happen. But so the season might not be the most optimal time, but the day is always important. The day, there's never a bad day to make a healthy choice. There's never a bad day to start to move in the direction of health. And you're either moving towards health or you're moving away from health. There's not a neutral. There's not a neutral ground right there. You're we could measure it in some form or fashion, right? If a scientist was going to get on me, or an engineer was going to get on me, or somebody was going to say, "Oh, come on, Jason, like you're that's what are you talking about? Like, I can have some pie and I can be just fine and nothing happens to me." I bet you that we could find some metric, if we could figure out exactly what's going on in your microbiome, if we could figure out exactly what happens to your immune system, if we could figure out exactly what's happening to you and your blood sugar. I had one of my patients today, she came in and she just started wearing one of those blood glucose monitors on her arm. And she was showing me, and I said, "Well, what is your glucose right now?" And she showed me, and it was like 171. And she's like, "Well, but I just ate lunch." And I was like, "What'd you eat for lunch?" And she said, "Well, I had spaghetti and meatballs." And I said, "Yeah, look, I just had lunch, just one lunch, just one spaghetti and meatballs." And what happened to my blood sugar? Skyrocketed, right? It went up high, and my blood sugar went up, and then my insulin followed it. And now I got to get my insulin. I got to bring that thing back down. And that process right there, that moment is what we're trying to control, right? So we do have some technology that can that can teach us about really how fine-tuned we want to be with our health right there. So once we get tempted, right, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to notice the schemes. We're supposed to look at them and notice, hey, what's happening to me right now? I'm getting tempted. We're supposed to quote our why. We're supposed to now go back to Leslie had me run into. We made some soup last night, and she made me run. She asked me to run get some squash and zucchini for the soup. And so I walked in the grocery store and I walked past. It's so interesting that you have to walk past the bakery to get to the produce section in the grocery store. That's an interesting scheme right there, that you have to walk past it. And so I went past the bakery and went into the produce section. And then as I was coming back I got the zucchini and the squash, and I was coming back through, I just looked at those little cinnamon rolls that I used to eat. And I looked at them and I just kind of laughed. I just kind of smiled and laughed, and I was like, "Yeah, you used to have me." There was absolutely no response. It was like, didn't create a neural pathway that made me want to buy them. Didn't want to buy them and sneak them into my car and then eat them before I got home and go through that nonsense like I've done before in the past. Right? Didn't want to not tell Leslie, use cash. Don't use your card. Use cash, that just the extra $5 that you had in your pocket, and then pick yourself up something so no one even knows, and then throw the wrapper away, throw the little thing away before you get home so that nobody knows you ate it, right? Well, don't act like you never done that before. I know dang well you have. I used to do that myself, right? I've been there. I've been through those things. And now I can walk through the bakery like it's, you know, like Jesus spent his time with prostitutes and tax collectors, right? He wasn't worried about becoming a prostitute or a tax collector. He was like, no, I can walk wherever I want to walk because I'm free of that stuff now. Once I got myself free of it, then, which Saturday I think is going to be 21 months since I've had one of those little cinnamon rolls. Like, they don't have any effect on me anymore. My daughter likes that sentence. It don't affect me none. Yeah. Well, that's the same way that's been. So we want to notice the schemes. We want to quote our why. And I heard a doctor say this weekend when I had some time off. I heard him say, I don't spend a lot of time on why. Somebody said that, and I was like, man, I do. I spend a lot of time on why, because if you don't, I think you get sucked into that temptation. And then the last one is to listen to that innate intelligence. Really listen to yourself when yourself is trying to tell you don't need that. That's not you anymore. That's not what you're all about. That's not where you need to go with that. Right? So that you don't need, once you get to that point, those are the three things. Notice the schemes, quote your why, and listen to your innate intelligence. And your external trials are going to lead to internal temptations. The things that are going on outside in the outside world and the things you can't control. And I hope that we can get to that before the show's over tonight. But because the external trials are going to lead you into that internal temptation. And that's where we get into that Romans chapter where it says, I don't understand what I do. Right? I don't know why I ate those cinnamon rolls. I just ate them. And then as soon as I ate them, on my last bite of eating them, all of a sudden I just wanted to throw up, and I was sick that I ate them. And I couldn't believe that I ate them. And I'm like, it doesn't support anything that I'm trying to do in my life. I mean, it's like, golly, I'm trying to be the best I can be. I'm trying to run the race to win. And then I don't understand why those M&Ms get me like that. Right? It's not the beginning of the bag. It's not the beginning of the bag that tears us up. It's the end of the bag that tears us up. Right? We get to we finish them and we're just like, dang, why'd I do that? I wish I wouldn't have done that. Maybe it's just me. You guys may not ever experience that before, but I can tell you that I have. So, part 5, where's the hope? Well, in church on Sunday yesterday, it was Christ as our advocate. So in the temptations that belong in the spiritual realm, that's where we turn to, is Christ as our advocate. He's the one that speaks on our behalf and works us through those things and gets us in favor with God, right? So that whole idea of Christ being the advocate is, but what about health? Where is our hope in health? And when I was listening to that message yesterday, it was like, that's what we're about. That's what the body is about. That's part of the reason that I don't mind going on here and sounding like a fool sometimes and talking about this stuff, because I don't mind being the guy who says, look, if you need somewhere to turn, you can call me. If you need someone to talk to, you can talk to me, because my whole life is right out here in the open. Right? It's like there's nowhere to hide anymore. There's no way to get around it, because you'll be able to see it on the video. You'll be like, boy, he's getting chubby again, right? He eats too many of those cinnamon rolls, he's going to get chubby again. Well, that's not going to happen. Those days are gone. So the scripture was Hebrews 2:17 and 18, and it was talking about Jesus and why he had to come back in the way that he came back. Why he had to, why he came and lived here. So Hebrews chapter 2 verse 17 says, for this reason he had to be made like them, fully human in every way, in order that he might become a merciful and faithful high priest in service to God, and that he might make atonement for the sins. Let me make sure I got this going here. Um, that he might make atonement for the sins of the people, because he himself suffered when he was tempted. He is able to help those who are being tempted. And we're fixing to go on to a break. When we come back, we're going to break down those two verses right there. And for this reason, he had to be made like them, fully human in every way, in order that he might become a merciful and faithful high priest in service of God, and that he might make atonement for the sins of the people. Because he himself suffered when he was tempted, he is able to help those who are being tempted. That's that what I heard when I heard them preach that yesterday was is it basically was talking to me, like it's like, hey, are you going to be that guy? Are you going to be that guy that's in service to God, who has been there and screwed it all up and done it wrong and changed your ways and straightened it out so that you can become a light that shines brightly in our society? That was the thing that got me. As soon as we get back from the break, we'll talk that over a little bit more. We'll be right back right after these messages. Yeah, so that's a little tough. I get it. I mean, it's a little bit. If you don't, if you're new to the show, you haven't watched the show in a long time, and you don't know who I am, that you, I could understand why someone might take that out of context and read that in some sort of arrogant way, right? And so, if you're doing that, then I'll just present for your consideration that maybe that's not how I mean it, and it's not how I mean it. That's not the point that I'm trying to get at right there. If what I'm trying to do is be the best me that I can possibly be, and what you're trying to do is be the best you that you can possibly be, and maybe what you're going to learn through this whole thing is that the lessons, that the things that you've been doing that have not been serving you, and you changed your ways. And those of you who are further down the road, every time we have one of these conversations, you got so many people on the spectrum that it's hard to know exactly who you're talking to, but you do know for sure that there's people in totally different places. So the people who are way ahead of me down the road, they're like, well, I know that. Like, I get that now. And the people, but the people that are coming behind me, that's trying to say, you're basically trying to say, hey, look, there's a pothole in the road right there. You might watch out. You might watch out for that pothole because it's coming up on you pretty fast, and you don't want to hit that. You don't want to hit that bad spot in the road right there. And you don't get some of those things. You don't get some of those things as a young person. You can't do anything about being young. You're just young. there's no there's no way to be old. You can get divine wisdom. You can get revelation that might be able to share that with some people. But there's just something to be said about getting on down the road a bit after you've been working on it hard. It doesn't mean that all the people who are down the road, age wise, have been working on it. It doesn't chronological age doesn't necessarily imply wisdom. That took me a long time to figure out too. It's not just about how old you are, but how much you've been working on something. And you can look at an old teacher that's been working on something, an old football coach has been working on something, an old horse trainer that's been working on something. Like, they know stuff, they've forgotten more stuff. You watch Nick Saban work. Like, he practiced 4th and 31, fourth and goal from the 31, apparently. If you watch a game, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, everybody, we're back. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC, on 98.7 Walk by Faith Radio. And all of the other places that you can catch us. And we're breaking down Hebrews. We're breaking down the last part. Where's the hope? And we're breaking down Hebrews, and it's chapter 2, verses 17 and 18 is what we're talking about right here. And so the the for this reason he had to be made like them. So the question is, where do you turn? Where is the hope when you're living in a life of temptation and there's a lot of things that are eating your lunch and there's a lot of things that are holding you back from the person that you want to be, right? Well, hopefully you can surround yourself with people who give you the opportunity to get there, right? Can you get can you find someone in your world that will make an impact for you? Can you find someone that's working every day to try to make an impact for you? Well, that's what I read from that scripture. Jesus did that for us spiritually, and he came back in a way. He had to be made like us. He had to be made like us, fully human in every way, in order that he might become a merciful and faithful high priest in service of God. Well, that's what I'm trying to do right here with our show, right? I'm trying to be that faithful servant that has done all the things wrong, has spent 30 years in the wilderness, you could say. 30 years of cinnamon rolls and pizzas and processed food and not working out and not getting proper sleep and all the things, right? All the things, so that now, once I decided to straighten it up, that maybe I can be of hope to you that's listening to the show. That's what I get out of that right there. And I think it's not just me. It's not just about me, which it's it's kind of funny because but anyway, and it is kind of, it's about, we're so selfish that way, right? But what if we all did that as a community? What if we all decided that we really wanted to try to be as good as we could be? What would we have to give up, and what would we gain if we all did that? If we all literally worked on trying to be as good as we could be. Like they just built a brand new wellness hospital in Lubbock, and one of my patients said they went in there and said it's super fancy. They got this big old workout place, and it's like, wow, that's interesting. I'm still checking out that scheme right there. Kind of wondering exactly how that's working out. What's the model behind that? Because that seems like a contradiction. But maybe they're trying to maybe they're trying to make an impact on the community. What would happen if that's the way that we functioned, right? So what would happen if a person had a whole community to turn to? What would happen if all the young kids had adult kids to turn to? What would happen if the teenagers had someone to look up to, because the 20-year-olds were looking up to the 30-year-olds who were looking up to the 40-year-olds, and the 40-year-olds and the 50-year-olds and the 60-year-olds were faithful servants that had been through it and who had learned to deal with the temptations, who had matured, who had gained the fullness and the richness. That's my favorite. That's my purpose right there, right? Ephesians 4. That is my that is my um that is my purpose right there. There's one body and one spirit, just as you were called to one hope when you were called, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all. That means all, like your joints and like your ligaments and your bones and that spirit that runs through you. That's what we call innate intelligence. That's what number 3 is. See the scheme, go to your why, and then listen to your innate intelligence. That innate intelligence is that spirit that runs through you that knows right from wrong, that knows truth, that brings you truth, right? That's what it's all about right there. But to each one of us, grace has been given as Christ apportioned it. This is why it says, when he ascended on high, he took many captives and gave gifts to his people. And gave gifts to his people. What he who descended is the very one who ascended higher than all the heavens in order to fill the whole universe. So Christ himself gave to the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors, and teachers. He gave some of us the gift of teaching. For what reason? What's the point? Doctor means teacher. That's what it is. It's a gift. It's a gift from where? It's a gift from the source of all gifts. Right? That's the disappointment in my last 30 years. That's the disappointment in the scripture to me of I do not understand what I did. It's like it was written that way so that when I finally got across the river and I finally understood, like looked back and I was like, God, now I understand what he was trying to say. Now I understand what that whole thing was about right there, right? Why would he give me the gift to teach? He would give me the gift to teach, to equip his people for works of service so that the body of Christ may be built up until we all reach unity in the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God and become mature, attaining to the whole measure of the fullness of Christ. That word right there and that whole scripture, and become mature. Like, that's my only problem. I've said this for years. The only problem that I have is my immaturity. I can't understand the end from the beginning because I don't have the faith of the mustard seed, whatever that means. I hadn't even figured that one out yet, right? But that's what I'm trying to do, is become mature. I don't get blown here and there. We will no longer be infants tossed back and forth by the waves and blown here and there by every wind of teaching and the cunning and craftiness of people in their deceitful scheming. Instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect a mature body for him who is the head, that is in Christ. For from him, the whole body, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love as each part does its work. Each part has to do its work. You have to do your work. I have to do my work. That's part of the deal. It's what the whole thing's about, right? And there's the hope. There's the hope for me, is that's where it is when it comes to health. The hope is knowing that when I become mature and I can walk through the bakery on my way to the produce section and not be schemed into having anything. It's a scheme that they put it there. Why don't they switch those two things in the grocery store? Why would they do that? Why would they put the bakery in front of the produce? Why wouldn't they put the produce first? And then the further you want to go into, if you really need to go get yourself some crack, you can go on in there deeper into the store, and then you're not messing with us in the front when we're trying to get our produce. Nope, they don't do it that way. They set the bread and the bakery right there in front. So when you walk through the deal, you got to walk through all that stuff. But when you become mature, it doesn't matter. When we finally get to that place, it doesn't matter. And so my encouragement to the temptation is that there's a life on the other side of the temptation that is so much more fulfilling than the temptation life that I walked through. There's a life on the other side there's a life of maturity, and I'm barely getting to it. Like I'm just now getting to that level that I'm entering the doors of maturity. I'm not to the point there all the way yet, but I'm getting a little bit closer, and I'm starting to see, wow, like, okay, this is another level right here. And one of the things that they keep saying over and over in that just bothers me, and I don't know exactly what it means, and I'll be humble enough to know that there's probably some learning on the other side of it. But there's nothing wrong with being tempted. No matter how healthy you are, temptation still occurs. No, the pastors keep saying no matter how much they study, they still get stuck with temptation. And it seems to be the more they study and the closer they get in their walk with the Lord, the greater the temptations get. I'm not seeing that at the moment right now. I'm not seeing those um, that it, um, I'll be humbled and say, look, maybe I just don't understand it. Maybe that's something that I just haven't quite gotten to the understanding of that. But it's it seems to me that that's not the case. Where I am right now, it seems to me that it's not the case. It seems to me that the more mature I get, the easier it is to recognize the scheme, but the less difficulty I have with it because I just don't need it. I don't it and maybe I'm it'll get revealed to me. There are some things going on. I'll get to them in later shows. There are a couple things going on that are revealing themselves to me, but it's not so much in the difficulty dealing with it right there. So I think that the hope is in the maturity, and if the maturity will be exhibited in the people in the body, the maturity will be exhibited in the body of those who have conquered that temptation or have learned to deal with it and become mature in it. And you can find those people in our community in every realm of life, in the spiritual realm, in the financial realm, in the social realm, in the physical realm, in the fitness realm, all those things. There are those people who are at that level. And when you get tempted, one of the things that one of the quotes, Dr. DeMartini, and I talked about him on one of the shows. He said, "You stick your hand in a pot of glue, in a pot of glue, you're going to get glue on you. You can't help but it happening. Like if you surround yourself with the maturity of those people, you move yourself into that level of maturity. If you surround yourself with immaturity, you get the same jacked up temptations that you've had since you were a teenager. We know that. We know that we acted a certain way when we were teenagers, and we acted a certain way when we were in our 20s, and we surrounded ourselves with a group of people that were immature, and we ended up with all kinds of temptation, and some of it we didn't know how to handle, right? And it astonishes me that we get to be 40, 50 years old and we act like the same. We act exactly the same way as we did when we were 18. We surround ourselves with the same immature people, and we end up with the same levels of temptation that didn't get us anywhere, right? And so if you are moving in that direction, and if you have a little bit of that for yourself, if you understand that and you can see that from where you are, then I'm going to encourage you to find those people that walk that way. Find those people in finance that are the people that can speak to you because they've made all the mistakes. Find those people in fitness. Find those people in health that that have been there and made those mistakes, and they're like, okay, like how did you what did you do? What did you do to overcome it? The temptation there was no issue of temptation at Thanksgiving. I didn't eat more than I was supposed to eat. I didn't care who I didn't care about what anybody else ate. It wasn't about I didn't care. Like everybody could eat what they want to eat, right? It's like, man, we don't I don't have to fall into that level. I don't have to fall into that level anymore. There was no overeating. There was no gluttony from that standpoint. There was no pie for me. That's 2 years in a row. Made it through Thanksgiving. No pie. Did I miss out? No, I'm telling you, there's not. Don't need it. Not interested in it. It's not something that there's a level. And I know people say the same thing in their spiritual world, in their financial world, in their social world. They do those things and they handle all those temptations as a mature person. So I hope the last 5 weeks have been helpful to you. I hope you've gotten something out of it. I hope that it's helped made your life better. Um, there's going to be a change next Monday, so we're changing lessons at church. I'm interested to see what they're going to talk about, and we'll take it and we'll apply it to health. So let's take these last few minutes of the show and let's take some of these things. Yeah. So one of the comments, sorry, thank you, Susan. She says, but the temptations become more difficult because they are in more critical areas. Yeah, maybe. Like we move up into different realms, right? Like we conquered first grade and then we moved to second grade, and then we have to conquer second grade before we can move to third grade. But once we get up to sixth, seventh, eighth grade, we wouldn't want to go back down to first grade again and have to repeat first grade. We've already conquered first grade. We're more interested in conquering seventh grade or eighth grade, and the level of difficulty in the realm that we move up, there's bigger things that we're working on, right? But we've got those foundational premises below to teach us how we got through all those things. And maybe that's the blessing of being in the wilderness for the last 30 years. Maybe that's the blessing of not understanding why I've done what I did, because without it, I wouldn't have a frame of reference to know what to do right. Maybe all those mistakes that I made in all those days that I didn't work out and all those cinnamon rolls that I did eat were lessons for me and blessings that I learned along the way to say, okay, now that you know better, there's your frame of reference right there. And that's a good thanks for the comment. That's a good comment right there. Is like, okay, that prepares me for the next level that I've got to deal with. You get up there past a certain level, and now you're dealing with things in the whole universe that you're trying to work on, and which may be a little bit confusing to those people who are in third grade. They might not understand what you're talking about. And if you're new to this show and you're just catching it for the first time, you might not understand what we're talking about. This might be a little bit misunderstood. So please don't take it in that way. But it's a great day to take all of this stuff and 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 kind of look into, like, in our physical health, exactly where it puts us. Like what is our physical health, and how what what have we been working on? And it gets that back to this idea of physical, chemical, and mental emotional stress. So if we graph it out, and we have our symptom line right here, and and then we add our physical, chemical, and mental emotional stresses together, then the distance from the top of that little graph to where our symptom line is our ability to adapt. So I think today is a great understanding of that right there, because we had some time off. Some of us did. We had to travel. Like, right, one of my girls came in this afternoon. She had a crick in her neck, and she was like, "I think I slept funny on my neck over the holiday." And I said, well, that typically happens, because what do? We traveled. We had to drive someplace. We ended up sleeping in a bed that didn't belong to us. We ended up eating foods that we were processed and full of sugar and all those things right there that created chemical stresses. And we also spent time with family members, and sometimes those family members create mental emotional stress, or the whole thing. And we might have stayed up too late, and we didn't get enough sleep, and we had to get up early, and all of those things happened, right? We had all those expectations of all those other people, and we had that uncle that we don't like, or that sister-in-law that's a pain in the butt, or whatever that thing is, right? And what happened to us over the weekend? What happened to us today? Did we feel super great today? Like, or do we have some things, or we're just a little bit sluggish, or whatever, right? I had a bunch of low back problems, and a bunch of neck cricks, and a bunch of pains, that all that stuff today, because what happened to us is any little thing that we just didn't have. We didn't have anything extra took us over the symptom line. And so what's that's that's what's important, is the idea when you're working in wellness. What you're trying to do is you're trying to decrease those things that we can control. There's things out there that we cannot control. But there are things that we can control. And the things that we can control, so let's just talk about physical. One, we can control to a certain extent our cervical curve. We can control the amount of energy that's going to our frontal lobe. Those are things we can control. I know that doesn't even make any sense, but unless you've been watching the show, but those are things that we do have control over. We do have the ability to work on our posture. We do have the ability to exercise our body. We do have ability to pay attention to our posture when we're seated or when we're laying down or when we're standing up, right? We can control to a certain extent some of the physical aspects that are going on with us. We also can control to a certain extent the chemical aspects that are going on with us. I cannot control some of the things. I can't control the wind. I can't control what's in the wind. I can't control the wind blowing things on me. Those are things I cannot control. It'd be really difficult to do. I can control whether or not I eat a corn chip. I can control the kind of deodorant that I want to buy, or the toothpaste that I choose to use, or the kind of sweetener that I put in my tea. I can control those things, whether I drink tea or I don't drink tea, whether I drink coffee or I don't drink coffee. Those are things that I can control from a chemical standpoint. I can be careful with the things from a chemical standpoint that I put into my body. And then mental emotional stress. Another thing on that chemical thing, I can also make sure that, like, I can take my fish oil and keep my inflammation low. And especially when I've eaten my sugar and increased my inflammation. Right? This Monday after Thanksgiving, a lot of us are full of inflammation because we spent all weekend eating inflammatory foods. And those inflammatory foods lead to decreased immune system function. And that decreased immune system function leaves us vulnerable to our external environment, the things we can't control. So when you start to see it and you start to look at it over and over again, and you keep hearing this crazy dude every night from 6 to 7 saying that same thing over and over again, when we do this, when we control the things we can control, we decrease our physical, chemical, and mental emotional stresses, the accumulative force on that, and we give our body a better ability to adapt to its environment. And now, if you add exactly the same amount of stress over the top of that, you still have room to adapt to your environment. You can handle more of your external environment when your internal environment is working better. So it kind of makes sense today, I think. I think today it is a good example of that, just by using the way that we're not feeling all that great, right? Some of us are feeling fantastic tonight, by the way, but some of us are feeling tired, and some of us are have some joint pain, or some of us have some acid reflux. How many of you got acid reflux, which is just reflux, really, right? How many of you had heartburn from eating all that refined carbohydrates that you had, right? How many of you are reaching for the Prilosec and the Tums and the Rolaids and all that sort of thing, right? Yeah. Okay. That you didn't feel all that great, and then you didn't sleep all that great because you had heartburn, and that problem caused some more problems for you, right? Okay. Now we can understand, by the way that we feel today, how how making each one of these healthy choices, it actually helps us. Did we get our workouts last week, or did we skip our workouts? Right? Did we go for a walk, or did we skip the walks? And those things that can make us healthy, can make us keep moving forward, and keep us healthy. If we made those decisions that were not such fabulous decisions, what do we do about it? What are we going to do now? We're just going to quit and give up, and then say, well, yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll just wait till the new year. How many of us have done that for How many of you are doing that now? You're not going to make a healthy choice now because, well, man, we're fixing to have Christmas, and it's just like this is not the best time of year. Plus, I love that peanut brittle, and I mean, we got to make our peanut butter and our fudge, and we got to go take that around, right? That's not the choice. Today is a day. Today is an awesome day to make a choice to be healthy, and tomorrow is going to be another awesome day to make a choice to be healthy. And that's if you put those days together, you'll be at, you'll be on down the road after before too long, and then you'll be like, man, I'm really loving this deal. Like this is working out great. Like I'm really liking what's happening. I feel like I feel like I can really make a difference out there. I hope so. I hope that's the way that you feel, and I'll see you guys tomorrow night.